3121 and tell your senators to switch to a majority vote and defund Planned Parenthood. Your call will make a difference. Darkness is not an affirmative force. It simply reoccupies the space vacated by the light.
This is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio
and Urban Family Talk.
It should be uncomfortable for a believer to live as a hypocrite.
Delivering people out of the bondage of mainstream media
and the philosophies of this world.
God has called you and me to be his ambassadors, even in this dark moment. Let's not miss our moment.
And now, the Hamilton Corner.
Good evening and welcome to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. I'm your host, Abraham Hamilton III, and I am here with the full J-Squared contingent. Jeff Reed to my left, Jason Tross to my right, Hannah in the screening room, and we are ready to rock and roll. First, let me say, we are inviting you to offer your listener testimonies. We are quickly approaching our Fall Share-a-thon, which will be October 16th, 17th, and 18th. And we're inviting those of you who listen to the program or who listen to any of the American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk programming and that you find it to be a blessing, you enjoy the programming, you'd like to share how AFR or the Hamilton Corner in particular or Urban Family as a network has been a blessing to you, we welcome you to call 877-876-8893. That number again is 877-876-8893. What will happen is you'll call that number and you will leave the equivalent of a voice message. When you leave your voice message, our creative production staff will get that voice message and produce your message to where you will hear your voice as a part of spots that run during the Share-a-thon. If you would, we would greatly appreciate you calling and helping us do that, and you would be participating in Share-a-thon as one of the voices to convey to the listening audience just how central and vital it is for American Family Radio to be on the air and Urban Family Communications. In addition to that, man, I had a moment. Most of you know that I was out yesterday, and I step out one day, y'all let Judge Kavanaugh go berserk. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I had an opportunity, man, to spend some time with my younger children by myself. And some of you are thinking, Abe, does thine assignment include sole diaper duty? Yes, it did. Let me tell you, the Lord has a funny way of making you appreciate your wife. Man, when I finally got back with my wife, man, I hugged her, squeezed her, kissed her. I said, baby, please don't ever leave me. Because your job is a literal full-time job. Man, I'm telling you, it's easy to just get in the routine of life to where you don't realize. I'll speak for myself. Well, I don't realize how much my wife actually does in the specific details. I mean, man, her mind has to be like a steel trap. The Matrix is not just a movie, folks. My wife is Neo. I'm telling you, man, she has to think about 15,000 things, 25 hours a day at the same time. Man, I had to do some things. I left the snacks. I got in the car down the road. I said, oh, man, I left the snacks. So I found my wife. I said, Maria, Lord, the Bible wasn't lying when it said, he that finds a wife finds a good thing. And I'm going to get a little serious for a moment. I've made the statement before. When the Bible says that, it doesn't say he that finds a female or he that finds an attractive lady. It says he that finds a wife, because the Bible is speaking to the quality, the wifely quality that exists prior to the husband finding her. So when the husband finds her, that wifely quality exists already. And so as a result of making that magnanimous, I'm speaking for myself, the magnanimous revelatory discovery, the Bible then says, finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. So I'm telling you, boy, nothing like having sole dirty diaper duty to make you realize what a glorious, I feel like Adam a little bit. Oh, flesh of glory, the good is this, Lord. He had to get a poem, flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone, because this is a good thing that the Lord has done. But anyway, I'm kind of joking, but seriously, man, if you don't, please appreciate your wives, especially if you may not understand all the details and the intricacies. Man, I'm telling you, I'm running around that house, babe. What can I do today? What can I do to make life easier on your front. How many loads of laundry can I wash? What can I do? What can I do? You know, goodness. I mean, she has to think about all of these things nonstop. All right. I think I'm going on enough because I can keep going. I'm going to have to tell more stories. When I had one dirty diaper coming to my son, little Gabriel looked up at me. He had a look on his face like, sad, sad man. You don't know what you're doing. You're about to take 12 hours to do what mommy does like a NASCAR tire changer in 15 nanoseconds. And my face back to my son. Son, you don't know how right your facial expression is. Let me get my gloves. To the Bible, let's go. 1 Kings chapter 3 is where I want to start off the conversation. Today, 1 Kings chapter 3. Let me bring you up to where I am contextually. This is right after Solomon ascends to the throne of the unified nation of Israel. If you remember, David was king of the southern kingdom of Judah first for about 7 years before he became king of the unified nation of Israel. Then the second king of the unified nation of Israel was Solomon, his son. And the Lord revealed himself to Solomon in a dream. And Solomon ended up crying out to the Lord, Lord, you know the thing I need? I need wisdom. Because I'm a small fellow in my own eyes. And this great people that you've made me king over, they are massive people. So would you grant your servant wisdom? The Lord grants him wisdom. And then immediately in chapter 3, we have an amazing account that's just nestled right there for us in Scripture, where the Bible is explicit. And this is my plug. The Bible is far more interesting than any Netflix series, any sitcom, any movie. Right in the thick of the Scripture, the second king of the nation of Israel. I mean, you have Solomon on the throne, and right off the bat, what happens in verse 16 of chapter 3? Prostitutes. This is in the Bible. Two prostitutes. One prostitute comes to make her plea before Solomon and says, look, I had a baby, and let me get this right. I had a baby, then 3 days later, I'm living in the house with another prostitute, or I'll say it, a woman of the night, however y'all woman, I don't know how to say it properly. I'll just stick with the Bible, prostitutes. 3 days later, my roommate had a baby, and in the middle of the night, my roommate rolled over and laid on her child. We both had boys, laid on her son and killed him. Then I'm going to sleep. You know, we're in the same house. We all know what's going on. And then this woman took my baby from my bed in the middle of the night and put him on her breast as if it's her child and put the dead baby in my bed. I wake up, I look down, that ain't my child. By the way, every woman knows their child after they give birth. Seriously. Trust me. She says, this isn't my child. That's her dead son. She has my child. So then she makes her a plea to Solomon. And then the first woman, I'll call her first woman, and who's actually the mother, and the second one, when they both come to court, one baby, both women claiming the baby. Both women claiming the baby. And we'll pick up in verse 23. And look what the Bible says. Then the king said, verse 23, 1 Kings chapter 3. Then the king said, the one says, this is my son that is alive, and your son is dead. And the other says, no, but your son is dead, and my son is the living one. And the king said, bring me a sword. Charlie White, bring me a sword. So a sword was brought for the king. And the king said, divide the living child in two, and give half to the one and half to the other. Then the woman, the first one, whose son was alive, said to the king, because her heart yearned for her son, oh, my lord, give her the living child, and by no means put him to death. But the other said, he shall be neither mine nor yours. Divide him. Then the king answered and said, give the living child to the first woman, and by no means put him to death. She is his mother. And all Israel heard the judgment that the king had rendered, and they stood in awe of the king, because they perceived that the wisdom of God was in him to do justice. Now, why am I sharing that particular account? Because we are in a moment where we are in a place where we have an overdose of information. I mean, there's so much information that is available to us, so much stuff that is available to us. Yet we are in one of the most ignorant eras in American history ever. And why is that? I believe we are suffering from a deficiency of wisdom. Proverbs chapter 4 says wisdom is the principal thing. Get wisdom. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 13 and 14. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding. This is something that I'm going to refer to later on in the program, and I'm going to apply it to, apply it to this whole situation with Brett Kavanaugh, where we have, facts are coming out hot and heavy. I mean, right before the show started, Jeff walked into my office. Hey, Abe, you saw this last story from, they're reporting that Dianne Feinstein, the very woman who, and I'm going to get into this later, who had the allegation against Brett Kavanaugh from high school for months, since July. And she's the one who was all of a sudden demanding, oh, let's get an investigation going. Ma'am, you could have got that investigation going about 6 weeks ago, if you want an investigation. And then, are we even going to have, are we willing to really have a public discussion about what's the role of the FBI? So we're going to just act like the FBI all of a sudden has jurisdiction over a potential criminal claim from 30 years ago. And I'm going to explain this very clearly. This is not to say anything about the seriousness of the allegations. These are very serious allegations that are made. But what we need is wisdom here. What we need is wisdom, not heightened emotional responses. We don't need a woman who happened to, fall asleep on her own child, all of a sudden saying, well, I'm going to take the live baby. And then really having no interest whatsoever in the live baby, saying, fine, kill him. Nobody gets him. I mean, what rationality is that? On what planet is that? That's not even a rational thought between women. And I'm concerned that just as the false claimer had no interest whatsoever in the life and longevity of the baby, I'm concerned that these people have no concern for legitimate victims of sexual assault. I mean, I'm telling you, as a prosecutor, one of the difficult tasks of my job was to walk through the process and even the grieving process and the pain process and the restorative processes to a degree with victims of sexual assault. And I'm concerned that the approach that we're taking is really like, well, even if we're in the process of maligning the cultural climate for a person to have a desire to disclose their abuse, who cares if we're going to score political points? It's like, who cares about anything other than the objective? And again, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I want to focus more so on wisdom. Wisdom, especially to those who profess to be believers in the Lord Jesus Christ. Please don't allow your emotions to drive your sentiment, your opinions, and Lord willing is certainly not your engagement in dialogue. As the young folks say, don't be caught up in your feelings. You catching feelings, and now you want everybody to be hot under the collar because you hot for this nanosecond. And then once the media cycle ends and they finish telling you what you should be outraged about, you return to your life filled with Candy Crush and video gaming all night long. I mean, come on, folks. Are we really that dense to where we are nothing more than pliable goo in the hands of a certainly politically interested media? To where no one, I'm going to play some audio for you to where literally, and y'all might not even believe me saying this right now, but I'm going to play the audio so you don't have to just take my word for it. But there was a commentator on the MSNBC who even said, well, it really doesn't matter what Brett Kavanaugh did or what he didn't do. All that matters is how he responds to a woman's pain. I'm like, the little dog with the furrowed eyebrow, my eyebrow went out. I was like, so hold up, yo, so you really saying it don't matter what really happened? Did you really just let that diarrhea leak out of your mouth like that? To where you're going to say on national television, it don't really even matter what actually happened. I'm saying, oh, you really think we are boo-boo the fool? You really believe that? You think you can sit in your studio and look me in my face through the screen? You don't see my face, you obviously just see a camera. But to look in the camera and say, It really doesn't matter what did or didn't happen. All that really matters is how we see how Kavanaugh responds to a woman in pain. I'm like, oh, no, facts matter, my lady. Facts matter.
Kim Davis did meet the Pope. I am Matt Staver with Freedom's Call. Well, the truth finally has come out. An archbishop has pressured spokesmen for the Catholic Church to admit that they lied about Kim Davis. She is, of course, the Kentucky county clerk who went to jail for not signing her name and title on same-sex marriage licenses. The Pope's top officials knew who she was, vetted her, and offered her a private audience with the Pope. Only after the meeting and the strong interest of the media did the Vatican spokesman lie and claim that Kim Davis did not have a private meeting with the Pope. They again lied, saying the meeting did occur, but the Pope didn't know who she was. Now they finally admit the truth. The Pope did know who she was and privately met to encourage her. She is finally vindicated. Stay informed at Liberty Counsel's website, lc.org, and stand for the truth no matter the opposition. That's essentially the lesson of the life of Kim Davis.
What if I told you that you could clean your family's laundry and help reach the next generation at the same time? That opportunity is here through a company called Redeem Clean. Every time you use Redeem Clean products, you help support the ministry of the American Family Association. In addition to your regular AFA giving, Redeem Clean laundry detergent allows you to increase your support of AFA just by continuing to wash your family's clothes. Redeem Clean products work as well as or better than other products on the market. They're environmentally safe, biodegradable, and they're made in the USA. And they were developed exclusively for the support of the American Family Association. For clean laundry and support of a cleaner society, it's Redeem Clean. Learn more, find options, and order Redeem Clean products at afastore.net. That's afastore.net.
Brian Fisher here with today's Life and Liberty Minute. Brett Kavanaugh is now facing shameless and unprovable accusations of scandalous sexual misconduct. These charges refer to an incident that happened, if it happened at all, 36 years ago, and for which there is not a shred of corroborating evidence. Such unverifiable smears against a good man's character should never be permitted. Jesus himself made it very clear in Matthew 18:16 that no accusation against a man's character should be accepted unless it is confirmed by a minimum of 2 or 3 witnesses. A witness is someone who saw and heard what happened. But there are no other witnesses, not a single one, who substantiate her accusations. The Senate should dismiss this effort to slime Brett Kavanaugh's good name and put him on the Supreme Court immediately.
Catch Brian Fisher on Focal Point, weekday afternoons at 105 Central on American Family Radio.
Shining light into the darkness, this is the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio. Man, I have so much to get to. I'm just going to tell you guys right now that today's show, I'm going to focus on the entirety of this Kavanaugh situation. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss, and so what I'm going to endeavor to do first is to get some of the facts on the table before I get into my opinion about the matter. And then after those two facts and then my opinion, I then have a suggestion to the Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, because I believe, as usual, the scripture provides us a great guideline for navigating issues like this. If you remember, and this is something just to keep in your mind, the wisdom that the Lord applied through King Solomon was, well, what is the core of the concern between these two women? The baby's life. So let's, in spite of the heightened suggested affinity for the baby, let's focus on the life of the child and make that the central issue. And as a result of making the life of the child the central issue, the true mother of the child will be made evident. So I certainly am not professing to say that I have Solomon-like wisdom, but I am saying that it's very easy to get caught up into ancillary side conversations. But let's focus on the main concern in this issue. And I think as we focus ourselves on the main concern, that we may be able to see a way forward as to how best to navigate the situation. But before we get to that, let me first go, because there's a lot of even conspiracy theories and things that are happening. So first, let me say this, that I've heard some stories I've read on the internet, some people suggesting that this woman, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, a professor at Palo Alto and at Stanford University, and she's a statistician and a psychology professor. Clearly an intelligent woman, that she's motivated by some sort of animus because her parents had a foreclosure proceeding that went before Brett Kavanaugh's mom, Marie Kavanaugh, I believe is her name. If you read the actual entries into the court record, Brett Kavanaugh's mom didn't rule adversely to Dr. Ford's parents. She actually ruled, it would seem, to be favorably toward them. So to use that as some type of animus, that's just, because people get crazy. And this is one of those instances where sometimes, just like I routinely talk about people on the left being ridiculous, that people on the right can be ridiculous too. There's no need to wallow or to fall off the wagon into areas of conspiracy theory. Let's examine the facts. If you read the court entry, it says that Judge Kavanaugh, Brett Kavanaugh's mom, ruled to dismiss the foreclosure proceeding with prejudice. It was a ruling that would be beneficial to Dr. Ford's parents. But anyway, having said that, so the first thing I want to say in this regard is that the allegations against Brett Kavanaugh are serious. They are serious. I'm sure by now you've heard them. When I first raised this, was that last week? What day of the week was that? I don't even remember. When I first, these days begin to run together sometimes for me. Maybe Tuesday or Wednesday perhaps, when the issues first came. All we had was the anonymous letter that was first sent all the way back in July to Representative Issue, a Democratic congresswoman in California. And then she passed the letter on to Senator Dianne Feinstein literally nearly 2 months ago, at least 6 weeks ago. There's reports that it could be even longer than that Dianne Feinstein has had the letter. You probably read the allegations. I'm not going to spend too much time going into them, but they're serious allegations that in terms of criminal statute, if this thing could be proven to be true, the elements would rise to that, in my opinion, of an attempted rape if they were true. Now, of course, the next question then goes to, well, are they true? According to what we know that has been reported, these are allegations when Brett Kavanaugh was 17 years old. Dr. Ford was 15 years old at a party where Dr. Ford claims that Mark Judge was there as well. Now, both Mark Judge and Brett Kavanaugh have unquestionably denied these allegations. Brett Kavanaugh is eager to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee and before anyone else, frankly, about these allegations and to clear his name of them. They've categorically denied them. There are some inconsistencies in the story as presented by Dr. Ford. She says that there were two people present in the notes. Let me say this. First of all, she said she had not disclosed these allegations to anyone in her entire life until 2012. And she did so to a therapist, and the therapist's notes on the conversation says that there were 4 people present, not 2 people present. And Dr. Ford doesn't know where this happened, what house, doesn't know anything about what time it occurred, which are some specific facts. And of course, these are issues that could be issues of memory, or they could be evidence of lying. I'm just telling you what it is. And so these are the things that are happening. Now, some of the concerns that I have about this is that, okay, first and foremost, according to the initial disclosures from Dianne Feinstein, the then anonymous, now named Dr. Ford, wanted to remain anonymous. But then Dianne Feinstein says she's going to honor her wishes by sending it to the FBI. You can't have it. What? You can't have it both ways. And secondarily, has anybody ever heard of the FBI investigating claims of sexual assault over 3.5 decades old? Because one fundamental issue of federal criminal law enforcement is that federal law enforcement agencies don't have jurisdiction over state issues. Like, there has to be something that impinges upon interstate activity that would invoke the federal jurisdictional authority. We're going to just act like that isn't the case, which is one of the reasons why I have a big problem with the Republicans in the Senate not calling the Democrats on the scope and jurisdiction of the FBI. The FBI's role isn't to investigate cold case, if you will, sexual assault allegations. At best, the appropriate body would be a local law enforcement agency in the jurisdiction where it took place. So these calls for FBI involvement are nothing more than a red herring at best, because the people that are calling for them know, or at a minimum should know, the scope of the FBI's authority. I mean, the FBI's involvement in vetting federal judiciary candidates is about their risk to national security. It's not about making them, Inspector Gadget now, to where they're probed with becoming sleuths on crimes in various local municipalities. That's just not their role. That's not their function, which is why the FBI has said, at a minimum on 2 occasions publicly, they're not doing any investigations. Of course, they said it in a lot more politically correct manner than I just said it. But they said, we're not investigating that. That's not within the scope of our jurisdiction as the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Man, I'm saying all of this stuff out of order. I meant to have this to be a logical, coherent presentation, but it's not coming off that way. I know it. In addition to that, I mean, it's just so much in this to where I'm going to ask you, does this, and I remember I did this with some of my juries. I want to ask you rhetorically, does this move you closer to finding the allegations against Brett Kavanaugh to be credible, or does it move you in the other direction to where you find it to be more so a part of a political maneuver in order to stymie or delay the Kavanaugh hearings? Okay? Senator Dianne Feinstein has had this letter at a minimum, for a minimum of 6 weeks before she said anything about it publicly. Why wasn't this issue raised in any of the 65 private meetings Brett Kavanaugh had with senators on Capitol Hill, including private meetings that he had with Senator Dianne Feinstein? Is that move you closer to finding these allegations to be truthful, or does it look more like a political calculation? Seriously, I'm asking the question. You also had 30 plus hours of live testimony where Brett Kavanaugh could have been asked about anything, right? And just to add to that question, you cannot forget Spartacus Booker, sir, in his desire to preserve the integrity of the Senate, sir, looking and even stating he was willing to violate the Senate's rules to bring to the confirmation hearing questions that he thought that the American people needed to be aware of, even though the entire Judiciary Committee was aware of them. Remember that? If these allegations they carried veracity, don't you think that Cory Booker and others would have wanted to ask these questions of Brett Kavanaugh under oath during the Senate Judiciary Committee confirmation hearing, where he's forced to respond under oath to the allegations? You don't have anybody there that's able to question Dr. Ford at all. It's all on him. And this follows the attempts, if you remember, one of the big things Senator Booker tried to accomplish was to say or to infer that Brett Kavanaugh, they tried to pull the race card. They say Brett Kavanaugh was guilty of ethnocentric partiality, skin color-based prejudices. But when that tack fell flat on its face and it showed the exact opposite about Brett Kavanaugh, then there was another development that happened. And you remember that the Senate Judiciary Committee members of the Democrat caucus tried vociferously to delay further voting on Kavanaugh. Remember, they wanted to get more documents, wanted to do other things. And finally, Grassley said, look, we're going to call for a vote on the vote. And they said, we're setting the vote for next week, September 20th, which is this Thursday. Remember that? So don't you think that they would have wanted to ask those questions of him under oath then? How about this? Even after the confirmation hearing concluded, Senate Judiciary Committee members submitted 1,200 additional questions to Brett Kavanaugh in writing that he submitted to supplement his confirmation hearing testimony, that he responded with over 260 pages of responses and answers to those questions. Yet this was never raised then. Yet it was not until the entirety of their efforts to delay the vote on Kavanaugh's hearing. You remember, and there was a vote taken in the Senate Judiciary Committee to delay the vote of the committee that failed. And Grassley set the hearing date. Then after that, Dianne Feinstein offered what was then an anonymous letter, and what has now become Dr. Ford's accusations. I'm submitting all of that because in my heart, and I was going to say this before Jeff gave me this story, but in my heart, I don't believe Dianne Feinstein believes these allegations. I don't believe that. If you know anything about Dianne Feinstein, she's a card-carrying regressive, but among regressives, she is one of the few that cares about process. If you follow her history, you would find that. I don't believe Dianne Feinstein is persuaded concerning these allegations, which put her in a position where she was more willing to lob the allegations, to put them in the ether, so to speak, as opposed to putting the allegations up to some scrutiny. It's far easier to throw the rock and hide your hand than to throw the rock and say, yeah, I threw that rock because you deserve to have the rock tossed in your direction. You see what I'm saying? If she does it then there's a full opportunity for Kavanaugh to answer questions on these issues, to respond, for questions about the veracity of the assertions to be made, and for the entire thing to be vetted without this Hobson's choice. To where, you know, in trial law, we call it, you know, the asking the when did you stop beating your wife question. Because when you ask that, when did you stop beating your wife, no matter what your answer is, you're stuck. Well, I stopped beating my wife, you know, in 1975. Oh, so you beat your wife for the years before that? You know, and once the allegation is made, then you cannot unring the bell once it's rung. Well, you have this scenario where it's a no-win for Brett Kavanaugh. You have the accusations made from 36 years ago that puts him in a position to where, and my good friend Miki posted this on Facebook, and Miki hosted the program yesterday, and she'll be back on Thursday and Friday. She said this, quote, "Welcome to Salem, where if you are accused, there is no way for you to win. You can confess and be marked, or deny and be hanged. I want in all of this for true victims to retain the dignity of sharing their story. The thought that actual victims of abuse are in some ways mocked publicly cannot escape me." She's absolutely right. Because if Kavanaugh admits anything, he's done. And if he denies it, they're still going to try to make him done. And what is the objective here, folks? The objective here is to delay the confirmation vote on Brett Kavanaugh until after the midterm elections, so that the Supreme Court vacancy becomes for Democrats what Neil Gorsuch's seat, becomes for Democrats in the 2020 midterms what Neil Gorsuch's seat was to Republicans in the 2016 presidential election. To where they will make the argument, here's an opportunity for us Democrats to take back Merrick Garland's Supreme Court seat. Remember that? Because they thought Merrick Garland, that should have been his seat. Forget the responsibility of the Constitution and the division of authority between the Senate and the presidency. The president nominates appointees to the court, but the Senate has the constitutional mandate to provide advice and consent. That includes their withholding that consent. There is no constitutional mandate to rubber stamp a nomination made by a president, even if that had been practiced for a certain amount of time. But if you notice, it's only been the practice long, especially in recent history, for Democrat presidents. Republican presidents, their nominees get fought to the end. Even in the contentious presidency under Barack Obama, Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan both enjoyed confirmation votes of over 80 senators. That included lots of Republicans voting for them, folks. But when it goes the other way, Clarence Thomas, 5248. Samuel Alito, 5248. Neil Gorsuch, 5445. You see, it only flows in one direction. This is, in my estimation, it appears at this point to be a delay tactic. But I'll go into some more on the other side of the break.
My name is Donna. I'm calling from Tennessee. American Family Radio has blessed my life in so many ways. American Family Association helps me stay informed through many of the programming that they have throughout the day. They've emboldened me to become involved in moral issues through their AFA Action Alert. By signing petitions and sending emails and making phone calls, I can join my voice with other believers to make our voice heard.
God is using American Family Radio to motivate Christians across America to help restore our nation's biblical foundations. Please partner with us in this critical mission during our 3-day share-a-thon beginning Tuesday, October 16th.
I would like to encourage and challenge every listener to give something. If we all would give something, God will take all of our somethings and turn it into much. Thank you.
Social justice is a gospel issue? This is David Wheaton, host of The Christian Worldview. That statement, social justice is a gospel issue, has become the rallying call of many evangelicals, as in, Christians must work to end perceived oppression. But is that biblically supportable? Well, what did Jesus say and do? Did he work to end the structures of racism, sexism, and the myriad of other injustices of his day? The answer is no. He preached the saving gospel of repentance of one's individual sins and faith in himself that results in a new heart that loves God and treats all people with compassion and, yes, justice. Hear an interview about the recent statement on social justice in the gospel at thechristianworldview.org, and then tune in this weekend for another topic that will sharpen your worldview.
Listen to The Christian Worldview with David Wheaton, Saturday mornings at 8 Central on American Family Radio.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes with news and commentary next. Hollywood bashed Christians and white people at the Emmy Awards. Host Michael Chi on NBC.
My mother's not watching. What? Well, she said she doesn't like watching white award shows because you guys don't thank Jesus enough. The only white people that thank Jesus are Republicans and ex-crackheads.
Hollywood also bragged about how diverse the Emmys were because we all know that these days diversity trumps talent. At one point, a straight white guy asked to be included in a song and dance number, only to be told his kind was not welcome. And Tracy Morgan announced from stage that he was only rooting for the black nominees. You know, diversity sounds a lot like racism. Ironically, all but 3 of the winners were whiter than mayonnaise. By the way, the ratings for Monday night's broadcast hit an all-time low. I guess that's what happens when white people and Christians don't watch the show. I'm Todd Starnes.
The Hamilton Corner podcast and 1-minute commentaries are available at afr.net and urbanfamilytalk.com. Back to the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome back to the Hamilton Corner here on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. Now, it's interesting to note to me, as we've been having these conversations, that to date, Dr. Ford has not responded to invitations by Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley to appear before the Judiciary Committee to discuss these allegations, and he's reached out to her consistently for over 36 hours. That's concerning to me, because as I stated at the very beginning of the program, that these are serious allegations, and I do believe Dr. Ford should be granted a fair hearing. But the late hour of the revelations of these allegations put the Judiciary Committee in a difficult position. And so before I end the program today, even before I get to phone calls, I'm going to offer what I think, offer my advice as to what I think Senator Grassley should do in this. And again, it's not surprising to me that you have a woman making allegations, but she said when she made them that she wanted to remain anonymous. Okay? Now, you can question if you wanted to remain anonymous, you know, why send a letter or whatever, but she did send the letter and requested to remain anonymous. So if she doesn't want to testify, then the question becomes, what does the Senate do? because she cannot be compelled to testify about this if she doesn't want to. Okay, and so I'm going to get to that, but I said I was going to share this audio, and I believe this woman, Anna Marie Cox, who is the founder of an online magazine called Wonkette. I had a little write-up on it. Where did I put it? It's somewhere. The Wonkette magazine is a satire site where they go into all types of things concerning gossip and political things. But this Anna Marie Cox was being interviewed on MSNBC. And in the middle of her interview, I was just listening to the audio. When she made this statement, I said, wait a minute. Did I just hear that right? I have to be hearing that incorrectly. And so I rewound the tape and I said, whoa. And so everybody is okay with this? Jason, if you would play clip number 3, please.
We need to judge Brett Kavanaugh not just on what he may or may not have done, but how he treats a woman's pain. And that is something I'm going to be paying attention to on Monday. How does he respond to what is happening, whether or not he agrees that this happened with her? Does he take her pain seriously? Do the people interrogating her take her pain seriously? Now, I'll give you a spoiler alert. I don't think Brett Kavanaugh takes women's pain very seriously, and I know that because of the decisions he's made as a judge.
So wait a minute, Miss Anna Marie. So you're not concerned about judging this scenario based on what actually happened? She said it, I'll read it. She says, we need to judge Brett Kavanaugh not just by what he may or may not have done. I'm going to read that again real slowly. We need to judge Brett Kavanaugh not just by what he may or may not have done. Is it the core of an accusation based on what was accused to have been done? If Jason punches me in my eye, I'm going to judge Jason based on what he did or may not have done. I'm not going to wonder to see, well, Jason, I said you punched me in my eye. Now, how are you going to respond? I'm waiting. Is that where we are? Like, one, is that what we're pawning off as analysis these days? And two, do they really think people are that dense? So we're not going to catch. You just said out of your mouth, I heard it with my own ears and I read it in a transcript, that you're not as interested in what he did, but you want to see how he treats a woman's pain? Folks, come on. Now, take that statement in light of what I said earlier. Is this really what this is about? Lobbing this verbal cruise missile to put Brett Kavanaugh on the defensive and then evaluate the response based on what you perceive? Is his empathy for a woman's pain? And with that, you're going to just completely discard the scores of women that have testified about working with him, being mentored by him, the scores of women that have worked with him, the entire record of his, for people that track this stuff, I don't, but I know people who do, his record for diverse hirings, to where, Ruth Bader Ginsburg formerly served on the D.C. Court of Appeals, so she did not hire one person with a darker paint job. Not one. In 13 years on the bench, and in her entire tenure at the Supreme Court, she's hired only one person with a darker paint job. Where Brett Kavanaugh has hired, hundreds. To where people on both sides of the political aisle, they clamor for Brett Kavanaugh's clerks. But this is ridiculous. So you're not concerned about what he did or didn't do? You're more concerned with seeing how he responds to a woman's pain? That's ridiculous. Getting back to what I stated at the beginning of this segment, and we will take phone calls this segment. If you want to be a part of the program, the number to call is 888-589-8840. Again, the number to call is 888-589-8840. One of my major concerns with this is, one, that I don't think, if this is proven to be a demonstrably false accusation, I don't think this whole circus is going to be helpful one bit for victims of sexual assault. Man, that happens. I'm telling you, as a prosecutor, I had far too many cases of sexual assault. And it's gut-wrenching what happens. But to just use this as some sort of political football, the reality is, more than likely, the statute of limitation for a criminal prosecution has gone. So the potential for any type of criminal charges being filed pretty much doesn't exist. So then the only hopes are for the usages of, one, this woman, Dr. Ford, obtaining some sense of justice by having the accusations or brought to light. That's one potentiality. Or the other is that the only potential benefit from this is nothing more than nasty, disgusting, gross politics. Now, to that end, this is my recommendation. Remember how Solomon said, okay, we're going to resolve this issue. Let's focus on the life of the child. Let's present a solution that's going to put the child's life at issue, not the emotional appeals of the women, but the child's life. And as we focus there, we then will see a clearer way forward to pursue the course of justice. I believe Chuck Grassley should do the same thing here. I think Chuck Grassley should come out publicly and say that I've been trying now for the better part of 72 hours, or however long it's been, or however 96 hours, however long it's been, to secure Dr. Ford's testimony before this Judiciary Committee. Up until this point, I have not been able to get a commitment or an expression one way or another from her. And state publicly, my concern as the Judiciary Committee chairman is to make sure all of the issues that require vetting, they are vetted as we consider the president's nominee. However, we have been put as a committee in the difficult position of having a vote timeline already scheduled, then to have this information offered to us at the last minute. Though Senator Feinstein had these accusations for at a minimum of 6 weeks prior, she did not disclose them until after the committee vote was scheduled. Because of that late discovery, I have no choice but to set a deadline to hear from Dr. Ford, and I would recommend that they set the deadline for tomorrow. That the deadline for me to hear from Dr. Ford, because I am keenly interested in hearing her out clearly, and I can think of no better venue than to do so under oath in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator Susan Collins of Maine has made a suggestion that we allow the questioning to be led by counsel, an attorney for Dr. Ford, that Dr. Ford's attorney will get to question Judge Kavanaugh, and Judge Kavanaugh's attorney will get to question Dr. Ford. The committee members will then be able to follow up on any questions after the attorneys have had their opportunities. Should Dr. Ford agree to appear before this body by, let's say, 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night, Wednesday night, then we will conduct the hearing on Monday and schedule the vote subsequently. However, if I do not hear from Dr. Ford by tomorrow at 7 p.m., we will continue on with the Senate confirmation vote, with the committee confirmation vote to recommend Judge Kavanaugh to the full body of the Senate or to deny his recommendation to the full body of Senate, but we will continue with that vote as scheduled because we cannot perpetually stop the wheels of the Senate from moving forward. What that would do, folks, in my opinion, is squarely put the focus back on whether or not the allegations made by Dr. Ford are made because she sees this as her only opportunity to grab some sense, some modicum of justice in this public sense, or this was nothing more than an effort to score political points. By setting that deadline for Dr. Ford, you literally put it on display for the entire country to see. Is this an issue where bringing these allegations to light is what is the desired objective, or is it nothing more than a political stunt? With that, we'll go to the phone lines. First, we'll go to Alabama, where Kathy is on the line. Kathy, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Abe. Your enthusiasm just lightens my heart.
I'm glad to do it. I don't know how to be any other way, so that's just really how I am naturally. Go right ahead.
Okay, well, my comment is simply that I feel that the Me Too movement was created primarily to be able to take people out. That's what they used to get Judge Roy Moore. That's what they're using now against Kavanaugh. And some will say, well, Democrats have been caught too, but that's the price they had to pay, was to give up a few of their own in order to take out a whole bunch of ours. Because every time somebody's getting too close to what they don't want, sexual allegations come out, and with the Me Too movement, a woman has to be believed, even if she has absolutely nothing to prove it.
Thank you very much for your call and your comments, Kathy. And Anna Marie Cox literally said that. I'm really more interested to see how Kavanaugh responds to a woman's pain than I'm concerned about the allegations being true or not. But I will say this. These tactics have been happening before the Me Too movement officially began. I mean, you know, when I introduced this conversation, I played audio from Clarence Thomas talking about a high-tech lynching being promulgated by members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. So I'm just saying that I'm not so sure that this is exclusively the product of the Me Too movement, but no doubt about it that the Me Too movement has kicked it up to another notch and put it in common, tweetable phrases. And again, my concern with all of this is that real victims of assault like this will be, in my view, more reluctant to come out, not less reluctant. Because when you see these type of things happening, and if it turns to be nothing more than political theater, that's not going to be good for real victims. But back to the phone lines we go. Next, we will go to Ohio, where Joe is on the line. Joe, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. And that you and the previous caller took a lot of my points. The liberals have been doing this for years, whether it was Judge Clarence Thomas, candidate Herman Cain, Trump, Judge Roy Moore, or now Judge Kavanaugh. What we need to do as conservatives is get out in these midterms and support the conservative candidates. And I urge your listeners, please do not send your money to the swamp in Washington. Support the conservative candidates directly. Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee, Renacci in Ohio. We can win West Virginia, Indiana, Missouri, the Dakotas, but send the money directly to the candidates so we aren't held hostage by the rhinos like the Flakes, the Murkowskis, the Collins. We can get some good conservatives in there to where we can get, good judges appointed like Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh is a good and righteous man, just like those previous people I mentioned that the liberals have attacked.
All right, Joe, thank you very much. Got to leave it right there. Thank you very much. Appreciate your call and your comments. We'll go next to, I believe it's Oregon, where Jane is on the line. Jane, thank you for calling the Hamilton Corner. Welcome to the program.
Hi. This is a little bit personal, but I think it's a sentient. I was the victim of an attempted rape in 1966. I am 73 years old. That was 52 years ago, and I remember everything in detail. It was a cloudy day. I was down in Port Hueneme. It was about 11 o'clock in the morning. It was on the left side of the pier. There was some building going on across the road from the pier. I don't remember if it was houses or commercial property or not. The attacker had curly blonde hair. He was about 5'9", 5'10". He was wearing a winter jacket, a white T-shirt, blue jeans, and construction boots or possibly military boots that he didn't tie all the way to the top. Now, that's a lot of detail, and I can continue. I could put anybody's name to this scenario. I could put you, although you probably weren't around then.
No, you'd be hard to put
anyway,
me in,
my point is that you do not forget anything about something like this.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here, Jane, and I'm going to say that you don't believe Dr. Ford. Am I right about that?
Not a chance. Not a chance. She would remember everything. She didn't forget where it is.
Wow. Well, Jane, first of all, I'm so sorry that you had that horrible experience, and my heart breaks for you in that. But your comments echo the sentiment of a lot of people, and particularly those who have suffered victimization, much as you have, who say that it's pretty sketchy in their minds for so many details that have been forgotten.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.